tired of smelling pot in your apartment building? Minnesota law has your back, unless your neighbor is medically exempt. A year after marijuana possession and use became legal in Minnesota, updated laws bans smoking or vaping cannabis in multifamily housing for all but medical users as of July 1st, you guys. That's right. Minnesota has some of the nation's most permissive rules for smoking and vaping cannabis, being one of just a handful of states that allows public consumption, like New York. Aside from some local ordinances that are more restrictive, those 21 and older generally can smoke and vape wherever tobacco smoking is allowed. But a date change in the state's adult use marijuana and hemp law passed back in May imposed a new restriction on private consumption that started as of July 1st. Owners of multifamily housing must now ban smoking and vaping of cannabis. The restriction was contained in the 2023's House File 100, but it wasn't to take effect until March of 2025. There is a significant exemption to that apartment ban. However, medical cannabis users who are registered with the program and have a medical card must be allowed to use smokable and vapable cannabis even in multifamily housing. That is not the case here in California. The ban was pushed last year by Senator Ron Latz from DFL St. Louis Park, and as one of the conditions for his support of HF 100, because there were no GOP votes for the bill. Every DFL member support was needed, and as a compromise with the bill sponsors, the effectiveness date was set for next March. That was the same time other provisions of the adult use law were to take effect, and coincided when sponsors enlisted the first adult use dispensaries would open for business. This year, it was determined that the March 2025 date was unworkable for various reasons, and first, in order to enforce restrictions on sales of raw cannabis flower being marketed as hemp. The Office of Medical Cannabis needed to be merged with the Office of Cannabis Management sooner, and second, so as to allow some cannabis cultivators to begin growing this fall. And the OCM needed to have jurisdictions over the rules governing medical cannabis cultivation right away, not next spring. Changing the effectiveness dates of those provisions had the coincident effect of advancing the ban on smoking and vaping in multifamily housing. Existing clean indoor air laws and ordinances ban smoking of tobacco or cannabis in common areas of buildings, lobbies, hallways, laundry rooms, and common outdoor areas, but until this month, apartment owners and managers could ban smoking in individual units, but weren't required to. Now they are, at least for cannabis. Residents can still possess marijuana in multifamily housing and can likely grow plants under limits of the law, and they can use products such as edibles that don't require combustion via smoking or vaping. In a quote, except for the use of medical cannabis flower or medical cannabinoid products, the vaporizing or smoking of cannabis flower, cannabis products, artificially derived cannabinoids, or hemp-derived consumer products is prohibited in any multifamily building, including balconies and patios. Apartment there too says that the law states that, and in a quote, a violation of this paragraph is punishable through a civil administrative fine in the amount of $250. And this article is long AF and just keeps on going and on, but that's pretty much the crux of the thing, is that I think this is great that they've made this distinction, especially within multifamily homes. I know that's one of the rules that they try to use against me, is trying to say that the common areas, that the smoke drifts or whatever, and all of this. And I just think this is a win for a lot of medical patients, residents, and I'm glad to see this. I'm all for this. What do you guys think?
Well, I think part of what happened with that building and everything in West Hollywood specifically was the attack on the original four, right? They were trying to say that adult use was not going to be allowed at those dispensaries. there could be medical patients only, right? And then medical patients, a lot of those folks they would be medical only when they tried to stop the original 4 from getting recreational licensing. Jason, I sat in the fucking
this has nothing to do with any of that, though. I don't understand how you're trying to correlate any of this, because it doesn't make sense.
If you'd shut the fuck up and let me land my plane, you'd understand.
Go for it.
So I think that this is showing a medical system that's actually protecting their patients, as opposed to what frustrates you specifically about the building, because they were trying to shut the whole city's programs down.
No, that's not true.
Okay, Jason.
That's not how it worked out.
Well, it's not how it worked out, but that was the fucking effort.
That wasn't even. No, that wasn't.
Okay, Jason.
You're very confused on that.
Okay, Jason. Well, I sat in the meetings.
That's cool. You're wrong.
All right, Jason. Whatever you want to say. Cover your ass however you like to.
I would say that I'm a fan of this. You know what I'm saying? And I think DC should adopt some kind of legislation like this, because of that poor dude that that housing dispute that we covered earlier on in the year, Jason. Remember, they did ultimately rule against the guy, and they can self-certify in DC. So I think this would protect the people
that are
actually medicating.
I agree with you, and I think it is important to note that that a lot of Section 8 housing is multifamily housing, and this would not protect you in a Section 8 housing, because that is under a federal law, and federal law still prohibits cannabis. So I want to make sure that people know that this would not affect Section 8 housing. You're still in the same boat. You can't smoke in your house.
That should be brought up with the presidential candidates.
I'm surprised none of them have brought it up.
If Trump actually does end up debating, I would love to hear some questions on stuff like this, to see how they would answer to it.
Also, too, I wonder how many people back in San Francisco ended up losing their federal housing for cannabis when Kamala was the DA. That'd be an interesting number.
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, while she was AG, even though she couldn't do anything about it, but it'd just be an interesting number to know.
Well, Rico is our data guy, so should we task him with finding that for the next show?
Yeah, why don't you figure out those numbers, Rico?
No, you can pay me after the show.
Follow the numbers.
I mean, I do think that this
Give
bill,
me my money.
I like the medical protection, but I think mandating at a state level that you cannot ever, even if the landlord wants to allow it, smoke inside of a multifamily unit is not a great look, and I think it's going to cause more problems than people are anticipating. I'd be interested in hearing the comments that happened on this law and seeing how much was actually thought into it, because now you say it's a civil administrative fine, so who's issuing that fine? Is that a citation being issued by the police? So now people are going to be calling the police on their neighbor because they think their neighbor is smoking a joint inside their apartment. Like, come on, that's crazy. And I mean the silver lining is you're allowed to smoke in public, so that's one thing, but what are people doing in the winter in downtown Minneapolis? They don't want to go outside to smoke.
Freezing their ass off.
Yeah. There'll be apartment Karens who are going to run around. Oh, I smell weed. I'm calling the cops on you.
People on Nextdoor and their HOAs are going to be going crazy with this law.
I think there's going to be a spike for doctors in this state with
that. Absolutely, another
cards.
Unintended.
That's great
for sure.
That's great, and then that more people are going to take advantage of the medical tax benefits in that state when they're purchasing cannabis or whatnot. So this is overall.
Which brings me back to my point. Why did the legislators think about that? Because if their entire purpose, a lot of these states like to legalize adult use to leverage it for tax revenue. Now they're pushing people back into the medical market, maybe just to get this exemption so they can consume in their own home.
Yeah, legislation tends to be overreactive, and then they overreact to the problems they left behind in the first legislation, and this pendulum will swing back and forth. I just think it's nonsensical that you allow the smell in the building for someone that's medical, not who's just recreational. How do you enforce this shit without a bunch of Karens running around?
I'll tell you what, Dale. If that was the case, I'd find a neighbor in the building that was medical, and I'd just go and smoke at his house.
There you go.
Yeah, proves that this has nothing to do with public safety. It's just about.
It's all about control. It's all about control of land use, and I'll tell you what. There's a whole bunch of odors that exist in my building that I can't stand, but yet the main reason that I'm not allowed to smoke is because of the odor, because it is so loud.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a vegetarian. I don't necessarily want to smell people cooking meat, but that doesn't mean I can go around the building and tell people not to cook whatever food they want.
Bro,
like, that's crazy.
I have a crazy cat lady next door to me, and she lets the cats run in the hallway.
Crazy cat ladies. Yep. She must be a Democrat.
She is too. She's super lib.
There's also the people that have the dog party every night in the hallway.
Yeah, then their animals be like pissing in the hallways and shit, and fucking it's all bad. It's all. That
sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
You got.
Welcome to California.
Yeah, exactly.
They're cute little dogs.
Karenville.
They're cute little dogs.
I'm surprised you haven't moved out to Texas yet. Come down to Austin. You could smoke your THCA flower right out on the sidewalk or at the patio at a bar. They won't say shit.
You know what's funny that you mentioned that is I'm actually working at moving down to Orange County for a freer life experience, and one of the people that I've talked with, they brought up cannabis and they requested that I just smoke in the backyard or in the front yard, in which I told them totally no problem, no biggie. Got a great front yard. Got a great backyard.
As opposed to smoking inside the house.
Yeah. He's like, I don't care that you have it or anything, but I don't necessarily want you smoking inside the house. And to which I said, hey, cool, no problem. I can work with that. I mean, it's got a nice front yard, nice backyard. You know what I mean?
You got nice weather down there anyway.
Exactly.